They're not afraid of losing you. Isn't that something? All this time you've been hoping that one day they'll realize what they have. That the fear of losing you will finally make them step up, change, try. That somewhere underneath all of it there's a version of them that knows they're lucky to have you, and is terrified of the day you walk out. But guess what, there isn't. Because they already ran the numbers, early on. Before you even noticed they were calculating. They looked at you, your loyalty, your patience, your capacity to forgive, and they made a decision. This one stays, this one will explain before they leave, this one will give another chance before they give up, this one is safe. And they were right. Weren't they? So they used to say, I don't know what I'd do without you. Oh, how lovely, how moving. Except people who genuinely don't know what they do without you tend to behave like it. Tend to treat you like someone worth keeping. Funny how that works. They know exactly what they do without you, they're just not worried about finding out. Because they're not losing you, are they? But wait. You've threatened to leave, haven't you? Maybe not in those exact words, maybe it was quieter than that. Something like, I can't keep doing this, something needs to change, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And you meant it. Every single time you meant it. And they listened, very carefully. And then they did just enough. Just enough to bring you back, just enough to reset the clock. And then, nothing. Back to exactly how it was. Because they knew you weren't leaving. Not really, not yet. And let me tell you, they weren't even stressed about it. While you were up at night rehearsing the conversation, building the courage, convincing yourself this time was different, they were fine. Comfortable, unbothered, because they've seen this before. With you. And they know how it ends. You stay. Be honest, how many times have you packed that bag in your head? How many times have you drafted that message, planned that conversation, told yourself enough is enough? And how many times did it end with you still there, still trying, still hoping? Can you even count? So, they stopped worrying. At some point, and you didn't get a memo about this, they just stopped factoring your leaving into their calculations. It became background noise, very familiar. Manageable. You say you're done and they hear I need attention. You say you can't do this and they hear give it a week. You say this is the last time and they hear see you tomorrow. How reassuring for them. And then they say this, you always do this. You threaten to leave and then you don't. And there it is, said out loud, to your face. They're not even hiding it anymore. They've clocked the pattern so clearly that they're comfortable naming it. And instead of that being the thing that finally breaks something open, you simply apologized, didn't you? For being predictable, for not following through, for giving them yet another reason to feel certain about you. Yeah. And the worst part? They're not wrong. That's what makes it sting. They read you accurately, they studied you and they got it right. Every exit you didn't take taught them something, every time you stayed after saying you wouldn't, you handed them another reason not to worry. You've been very generous with those reasons. Let me say what's actually happening, and it's colder than you'd like it to be. Listen, they're not staying because they love you enough to work on things. They're not staying because they're trying. They're staying because leaving would be inconvenient. Because you're familiar, available, and you've made yourself the easiest option in their life, and the hardest one to lose. Don't fool yourself here. It's not because they value you, but because replacing what you do for them would require actual effort. How romantic. Think about it, from the very beginning they were paying attention. Not to your dreams, not to what makes you laugh, not to who you are when you feel safe. They were paying attention to your patterns. How quickly you forgive, how much you're willing to absorb, how far they can push before you reach your limit. And more importantly, what happens when you reach it. And what they've learned. Nothing. That's what happens. One big fat nothing. So they filed it away. Useful information. Because knowing someone's limit is only valuable if you also know they won't enforce it. And you, wonderful, loyal, patient you, never enforced it. Not really, not in a way that cost them anything. And they noticed. Do you remember when they first time said, "I know you're not going anywhere"? Just like that. Casual, confident, like it was a compliment. Like your loyalty was something to be proud of rather than something they'd systematically exploited since the beginning. But there it is. Said out loud, they know, they've always known. The uncertainty you thought kept them on their toes. They resolved that a long time ago. You just didn't get the update. So, here's how the dynamic actually runs. They behave badly, you react. They wait, you explain. They apologize just enough, you stay. They recalibrate, meaning they now know they can go slightly further next time. And the cycle runs not because they're out of control but because they're very much in it. In control of this, of you, of the whole thing. Come on, look at how impressively consistent they are. People who are genuinely struggling, genuinely trying, genuinely remorseful, they're inconsistent. They slip up, they catch themselves, they overcorrect. But someone who has you figured out. They're consistent. The push and pull, the hot and cold, the just enough, it's always calibrated. Do you hear it? Always measured. That's not someone who's lost, that's someone who's comfortable. And honestly, the most brutal part of all this is what it says about how they see you. Not as a person whose feelings matter. Not as someone whose leaving would genuinely devastate them. But as a sure thing, a constant, a variable they stop needing to account for because you've been so predictably, heartbreakingly reliable. You showed up, every time, and instead of that being something they treasured, they used it as a reason not to try. Very applaudable. Surely you see that your consistency was supposed to be a gift, but they treated it like a guarantee. So shall we acknowledge the obvious and talk about what their certainty is actually costing you? Because that's what this is. Their certainty. Their absolute, unbothered, unshakable certainty that you're not going anywhere. And while that certainty sits comfortably in them, warm, unchallenged, well-fed, something is happening to you on the other side of it. You're shrinking. Slowly, quietly, in ways you haven't fully named yet. Think about it. When someone isn't afraid of losing you, they stop working to keep you. And when they stop working to keep you, you start working harder to make them want to. You become more accommodating, more patient, more careful about how you say things, more willing to let things slide. Because somewhere underneath it all there's this quiet, desperate need to matter to them. To be someone they could imagine losing. And they watch you work completely unbothered. Love the confidence when they say, "I just don't think you'd actually leave." And maybe you laughed it off, maybe you got angry, maybe you promised yourself you'd prove them wrong. But here's the thing, how long ago was that? Can you even recall it? And where are you right now? Still there, aren't you? Here's what nobody tells you about being with someone who isn't afraid of losing you. It makes you afraid. Constantly. Not of them leaving, don't worry, they're not going anywhere, you're too convenient. But afraid of never maturing enough, afraid that no matter what you do, how much you give, how patient you are, you'll never be someone they genuinely can't imagine life without. And that fear keeps you trying. Which keeps them comfortable, which keeps the whole thing running perfectly. For them only. How sweet. So look at what this has actually cost you. The relationships you've neglected because this one took everything. The opportunities you didn't take because you were too deep in trying to fix something that was never broken on their end. The version of yourself, confident, certain of your own worth, that's gotten quieter with every month you've spent trying to become someone they might finally fear losing. You need to understand that you can't make someone fear losing you. Either they value you or they don't. The fact is, someone who values you doesn't need to be convinced, doesn't need to be threatened, doesn't need to be shown what life looks like without you before they treat you right. They just do it, because they're afraid of a world where they don't get to. Bit hard to ignore, isn't it? So here's where it changes, of course if you decide it does. Because you can't make them fear losing you. Let's just get that out of the way immediately. There's no conversation, no ultimatum, no version of yourself you can become that will install that fear in someone who has already decided you're a guarantee. That's not how it works. And every attempt to make them see what they'd be missing just hands them more evidence that you're still invested, still trying, still not leaving. Well, that's not the move. The move is quieter than that, and harder. It starts with accepting, really accepting, not just saying it, that someone who isn't afraid of losing you is telling you something important about how they see you. Not as the love of their life, not as someone irreplaceable. But as a constant, a given. And you are worth so much more than being someone's given. You know that, don't you? It's also time to stopping the performances. The "I can't do this anymore" conversations that end with you still there. The threats that taught them you don't follow through. Every time you said you were done and weren't, you made their certainty stronger. It's time to stop announcing, stop threatening, stop giving them the opportunity to do just enough to keep you. Remember, you just move, quietly, deliberately, without a speech. Try it once and watch what happens. Because here's the thing about people who are certain you'll stay. They're not prepared for you to actually go. The certainty that kept them comfortable is the same certainty that will blindside them. Not because you want to hurt them, but because your absence will say everything your words never could. And honestly, the most important shift isn't about them at all. It's about you deciding that you want to be with someone who is genuinely, actively afraid of a life without you. Someone who treats you well not because you threaten to leave but because the thought of losing you is something they can't sit comfortably with. That person exists, that feeling exists. But you can't find it here in a place where your staying is assumed and your leaving is a bluff they've already called. You were never a guarantee, you were a choice, and it's time you started being treated like one. So here's where we land. They're not afraid of losing you, they never were. From the moment they figured out your patterns, your loyalty, your patience, your capacity to stay, they stopped worrying. And they've been comfortable ever since. And let's just say that comfort you built it, when every time you stayed after saying you wouldn't, every time you forgave without seeing change, every time you made yourself smaller to keep the peace. You handed them the certainty they needed to never have to try. Think hard, someone who truly loves you doesn't need to be threatened into treating you right, they just do it. Because losing you is something they actually can't afford. But they can afford it, they've decided that a long time ago. The question is whether you can afford to keep letting them. The floor is yours.